Hello, my name is Nancy, and at 29, I'm passionately pursuing my career goals. I currently live with my husband, Benjamin. Lately, I've been giving serious thought to starting a family. However, Benjamin believes we should focus on establishing the new home before considering children. As a result, we are both putting in long hours to save for our future residence. While I yearn to become a family sooner rather than later, Benjamin's firm stance becomes evident whenever we discuss the idea of children. He consistently stresses the importance of securing our home first, which leaves me feeling disheartened, as it often seems like he overlooks my feelings. I find myself compelled to work even harder to contribute to our savings. We have been married for a year, and I've begun to notice a troubling pattern in our relationship. Benjamin rarely considers my viewpoints. This habit has lingered since our dating days. While I once admired his decisiveness, I now understand that mutual respect for each other's opinions is essential in a marriage. I'm increasingly concerned about the stability of our relationship, especially with the influence of his parents nearby. Benjamin often visits them, claiming he's saving money, yet I have noticed him frequently spending time with colleagues, enjoying drinks, and not sticking to a budget. It baffles me how he expects me to adhere to strict saving standards while he indulges in certain luxuries. His frugality even extends to minor details like conserving hot water and turning off lights too soon, rules he seems to apply only to me. Our relationship is feeling increasingly unbalanced. Despite my growing frustration, he believes it's reasonable to impose his views on others. Every time we visit his parents, the tension rises. It's been a year since you got married. We'd love some good news soon. My in-laws often chime, eager to meet their future grandchild. In these moments, I catch Benjamin casting disapproving glances, silently urging them to avoid such discussions. As this pressure mounts, I find myself at a crossroads, questioning how we can strike a balance between our dreams and the practicalities of our life together. While we both long for a child, Benjamin insists we should establish our home first before expanding our family. It feels unfair that my in-laws press me about having a baby rather than addressing Benjamin, who seems indifferent to my feelings on the timing. Although I want to speak up, I often feel silenced by their relentless expectations. After dinner, Benjamin steps out for a smoke and remarks, "Nancy, you're working hard, but if you really want to be a housewife, maybe you should consider quitting your job and focusing on home life. That might be why you're not getting the attention you need from me." It's as if he's suggesting that my career is the reason we can't start a family, which is both unfair and untrue. Benjamin himself doesn't seem ready for children anytime soon. Frustration bubbling over, I shot back at my in-laws. "Benjamin was the one who encouraged me to keep working, so why don't you talk to him before lecturing me again?" My patience was wearing thin. I want children too, but Benjamin is the one who isn't ready. Please direct your concerns to him instead of constantly criticizing me. My words seemed to take my in-laws by surprise, and I excused myself from the table, heading for the door. As I approached the entrance, I spotted Benjamin casually smoking, offering no words of comfort as I climbed into the car. A friend who had joined us for dinner followed me out, unaware of the tension. "Are you leaving already?" she remarked, her tone light. Exhausted from the constant pressure from my in-laws and Benjamin's indifference, I declared, "I won't be visiting your parents' house anymore." Benjamin looked at me, taken aback. "Why not? We can save on food costs, right? Besides, you want a home and kids soon, don't you?" Fed up, I snapped, "If it's really about saving, maybe you should cut back on your drinking and smoking instead of driving to your parents just to save on a meal. Why can't you find savings in those areas too? Everyone needs a break." I voiced my frustration, recalling how Benjamin had always imposed restrictions on me, like limiting hot water use and enforcing lights out by 9 p.m., all in the name of saving money. He seemed to think that these changes required no real sacrifice on his part. If I'm the only one making these adjustments, then I don't even want this house. I'm so tired of it. You never give up anything yourself, but you're perfectly fine demanding sacrifices from others. Benjamin tried to downplay my concerns, suggesting they weren't significant, but I firmly countered, "No, this is a big deal. Do you realize how much patience?" I had to summon every ounce of patience as I endured Benjamin's ongoing pretense in front of his parents, acting as if I was the reason we couldn't have grandchildren. It infuriated me further. I'm tired of the pressure about grandchildren. It's not me who's hesitant about having children, it's Benjamin. I've been clear about wanting them soon, so please stop this relentless pressure. My voice was laced with exasperation. Seeing Benjamin struggle to respond to my uncharacteristic outburst brought me a bitter sense of satisfaction, but it didn't resolve our underlying issues. Feeling uncertain about what to do next, I stared out the car window, ignoring him. A turning point came a month later when my father's brother passed away, leaving behind several pieces of land and a luxurious mansion. Benjamin's eyes widened when he learned about my uncle's impressive estate. "I didn't realize you had such a remarkable relative," he commented. A few days after hearing about my inheritance, I decided to discuss the details with a lawyer in our apartment, knowing the matter was exclusively mine. Sensing Benjamin's discomfort with the idea of inheritance, I politely asked him to step out of the room to avoid any potential complications. After about 5 hours of detailed explanations from the lawyer, I thanked him and saw him out. To my surprise, when I turned around, Benjamin was gone. Assuming he had stepped out to give us some privacy, I began preparing dinner, unaware of the changes that lay ahead. 4 months later, Benjamin approached me with an unexpected confession. His invitation for a drive filled me with a mix of excitement and curiosity. As we drove into a residential area, my curiosity morphed into confusion when we stopped in front of a house I didn't recognize. Benjamin pressed the intercom, and to my astonishment, my in-laws emerged, not from their usual home but from this new one. My father-in-law beamed and exclaimed, "You finally made it. So when are you and Nancy moving in?" His next words were anything but welcoming. He'd accused me of being a selfish daughter-in-law and of shifting the responsibility of having children onto Benjamin. I shot Benjamin a disapproving glance, bewildered as to why he would bring me here after I had made it clear that I no longer wanted to visit my in-laws. Seeking clarity, I asked him for an explanation. He replied, almost too calmly, "Don't be so upset. If we live together, it can help mend the relationship between you and my mom. Besides, this will be our new home from now on, so you should be more cooperative about the children's issues." His revelation stunned me. I had explicitly stated my reluctance to live with them, yet here he was, announcing plans that were already in motion without my agreement. The house, as Benjamin explained, was a 2-family residence. My plan has always been for us to eventually live with my parents. "So what's the problem with living in a 2-family house now?" he asked, as if the arrangement should have been obvious. As I mulled over the situation, the implications of living in such a house became increasingly clear, especially regarding our finances. Constructing such a grand residence seemed beyond our means, and I couldn't grasp how Benjamin managed it. "My dad and I chipped in the money, so our savings are empty, but that's fine, right?" he said nonchalantly, revealing a complete disregard for our mutual financial planning. He then added, "I heard your uncle's inheritance was about $720,000. If you use that money to repay us for the cost of this 2-family house, it should all work out, huh?" His assumption that my inheritance would simply cover these expenses without my consent left me astounded. The audacity of his plan was infuriating. The idea that I would finance these arrangements unilaterally was not only presumptuous but deeply unsettling. Frustrated by the entire ordeal, Benjamin dug into his bag and pulled out a pre-filled divorce form with his name already scrawled across it. "Your money is our money. If you don't like living together, let's just get a divorce," he declared confidently. Taking the form from his hand, I replied resolutely, "Fine. If those are the only options, then divorce is the better choice for me." I slipped the divorce form into my bag, turned my back on him and my stunned in-laws, and walked away without acknowledging their reactions. As I exited, I casually added, "By the way, I renounced my uncle's inheritance." Benjamin stood frozen, his face a mix of confusion and disbelief. Without waiting for a response, I caught a bus back to our apartment. Once home, I filled in my name on the divorce form that already bore Benjamin's signature, finalized it, and promptly submitted the divorce papers. Then I went to a home improvement store, purchased several cardboard boxes, and began preparing for my move. Realizing I couldn't handle the move alone, I hired a moving company. Fortunately, it was a slow season for relocations, which meant I could arrange a quick transition. As I packed, I heard Benjamin arrive at the door. I had the chain lock on and called out, "Sorry, I've got the chain on. I'm not sure what you might do in your current state of anger. Besides, I need to finish packing. Could you stay at your parents' house for a few days?" Defiantly, Benjamin replied, "I won't accept a divorce." His statement surprised me. "But you handed me the divorce form, didn't you? Signing those papers means you agree to the divorce, you know." Benjamin looked puzzled and frustrated, quickly shifting the topic. Why would you give up on a $720,000 inheritance? Normally, you'd inherit it, he questioned, clearly having caught snippets of information about the inheritance but misunderstanding the situation. It seemed he had overheard some details about the $720,000 and, in a rush, had gone to my in-laws. They, in turn, impulsively bought the two-family house without considering the full implications. I made it clear that the discussion about the inheritance was mine to handle, and renouncing it was my decision, made specifically to avoid entanglements like this. Given the complexities of my uncle's estate, renouncing the inheritance seemed the wisest choice. Despite the $720,000 value, the costs associated with his assets were enormous. The mansion required demolition, the land needed substantial upkeep, and he had accrued significant debts. Strangely enough, despite having 2 sons, 2 daughters, a wife, and grandchildren, they all chose to renounce their claims, leaving the inheritance solely to me. When I explained this to Benjamin, he was incredulous. No way. So you're saying that even with $720,000, there wouldn't have been much left? That sounds like fraud. I clarified that after a thorough discussion with my lawyer, it became clear the inheritance was more of a burden than a blessing. Unfortunately, it seemed someone had eavesdropped on part of our conversation and misunderstood the context. My explanation left Benjamin speechless, and it seemed he finally realized the gravity of his mistake. It's too late now, I firmly told him. You betrayed my trust. We've already filed for divorce, and you and I are no longer a couple. Why are you hinting that you don't want the divorce? If you truly didn't want to separate, you should have followed me when I returned. I reminded him of the consequences of his and his father's decisions, especially regarding their investment in the two-family house, without considering all the facts. Your mother's opinion on the divorce doesn't change our reality. Her lack of financial experience might have prevented her from understanding the true value of money. With a heavy sigh, I realized that listening to his complaints about his parents was no longer my concern. If we had still been married, perhaps I might have entertained such discussions, but under the current circumstances, it was no longer appropriate. You haven't submitted the divorce papers yet, have you? I asked. He pleaded desperately. If you do it now, we can still be a couple. Please, let's live together in that two-family house. But I had already submitted the papers. There was no turning back. It's pointless now, I replied firmly. His face fell, a picture of bewilderment and loss as he stood at the apartment door. While I believed he had brought this situation upon himself, I couldn't let him linger outside indefinitely. After a brief moment of considering sending him away, I decided I had no time to waste and continued packing. Eventually he left, and I proceeded with my plans, notifying my workplace about the divorce. Given that my boss had acted as our mediator, I felt compelled to explain the situation to my coworkers during lunch break, many of whom had celebrated with us at our wedding. Unexpectedly, Benjamin burst into my department while I was discussing this with my colleagues. It's absurd that you're talking about the divorce. I wish you hadn't mentioned it, he exclaimed. He then proceeded to explain to everyone that he had assumed I had inherited a significant estate, which had led to his impulsive suggestion of buying the two-family house. Faced with the choice between divorce and living together, I chose divorce. As a result, Benjamin found himself increasingly ostracized at work, while my colleagues extended their sympathy toward me. The discomfort of the situation at his job grew so unbearable that he eventually resigned. During this tumultuous time, a male colleague approached me. I've actually liked you for a long time, he confessed. I hope we can build a home where we can communicate as a couple and work things out together. His unexpected confession offered a glimpse of a potentially different and more understanding partnership in the future.